Hello, my name's Siobhan Colman, and I'm here to talk to you about this, pink. And before I actually read you any of it, because I'd like to, I want to talk to you about when it's set. Pink set in 1969, long time ago for some of you, not so long ago for me. You can tell by the grey hair. 1969 is when I was a little girl, and the central character in this book is a little girl. She's the narrator, and she tells the story of a mysterious stranger that moves in next door. I suppose that's the best I can say. So I'm going to read you a little bit about it, just a little bit of background. She has a brother. She and her brother fight a bit. She has a temper. She's quite bad-tempered sometimes, and she and her brother live with their mother, who's a single parent. And the world in 1969 meant there was no mobile phones, there was no internet, so if you wanted to look anything up or find out information on anything, you either read the newspaper or you consulted an encyclopedia. And the little girl's mother sells encyclopedias. Excuse my cat. Obviously wants the attention. Anyway, here we go. So I'm going to read a little bit of, I'm not starting at the beginning, I'm starting at a little bit into it. It's about when the next door neighbours are moving out of their house, or have moved out of their house. For 2 weeks, the Johnsons' old house sat empty. The patch in the backyard where the Hills hoist had been began to grass over, and the path to the front door was scattered with leaves. Mrs. Johnson had swept it every morning, but now it made me sad to look at. It was around midday on a Saturday when the car pulled up. Long and black, it had shiny silver decorations all over it. On the hood was what looked like a tiny statue of an angel. There was writing in red and silver on both sides of the cabin. I had trouble reading it. "What's it say?" I asked my brother. He was standing next to me as the car drove up into the drive. His eyes were like saucers. "Huh?" He stepped back a little so that he was standing behind me. I turned to look at him and saw that his mouth was open. "What's wrong?" I asked him. "Huh?" he said again. "The car." I pointed to it, parked in the driveway next door. "What does it say on the side?" He blinked, then frowned at me. "You're so stupid. It's not a car." "What do you mean?" "It's a hearse, Pocky." I stared at him, confused. "A hearse," he sniffed. "It's for dead people." I felt my chest tighten. "Oh." In that moment, I wished I'd not asked him. Dead people were moving in next door. No wonder he was scared. Of course, a large part of me knew they couldn't really be dead. But Marble Ann at school, well, she'd told me that in her travels in Africa, she'd seen dead people moving around as though they were alive. "Zombies," she'd said. "The witch doctor told me there were loads of them, even in America. Even my mama seen them. Went out with one for a while before she realised a real zombie." She'd sent a chill down all our spines when she told us. One boy even wet his pants. "But there aren't any in Australia, are there?" asked one of the older boys. "Sure there are. They're everywhere. The witch doctor told me." I didn't like Marble Ann much, and I didn't believe her that day. But that was before I had dead people move in next door. When the big black car door opened, the first thing I saw were 2 long, stockinged legs and red high-heel shoes. Next came a short red miniskirt and a tiny white blouse. Then long, dark hair, red lips and sunglasses. She looked like a movie star. Wow. My brother was speechless. We both watched her turn to look at us on the roof and smile. I smiled too, while my brother blushed. "She's not dead, is she?" I asked as we watched her glide up the steps and open the front door. "Pocky, you're an idiot." Later, when Mum came home from getting the groceries, I asked her about the writing on the hearse. "It says, the amazing Angelique." "What does that mean?" Mum laughed. "Your guess is as good as mine, sweetie. But I have a feeling we'll soon find out." I looked at the long dark cab in the drive, shiny and gleaming in the sun. "Mum, can dead people come back to life?" "Not usually, sweetie." "Can some?" "Well, Christians believe they can." "Do you?" "Only metaphorically, sweetie. In other words, no." I looked at the angel on the roof. "So she's alive?" Mum wrapped her arms around me and laughed. "From what your brothers told me, very much so, sweetie. Very much so." The following day was Sunday, and the Wallaces emerged from their house and stood staring beyond our front drive to the hearse parked next door. I watched as Mr. Wallace placed a protective arm around his wife. "He doesn't look happy." My brother and I had just finished our toast and were swinging our legs over the edge of the roof to catch the winter sun. Mum was down in the kitchen making us all a thermos of tea. My brother barely glanced at the Wallaces, standing like frightened bunnies in their driveway. They looked the same as usual. "They're scared." "Pocky, they always look like that?" I shook my head. "No, they're scared." "Of what?" he scoffed. "I think they're scared of the amazing Angelique. Maybe they don't know she's not dead." He looked at me momentarily confused before laughing. "You are so stupid. I know you can't help it, Pocky, but you're really thick." I was angry now. I could feel a hot flush of fury work its way up my body. He was the stupid one. My fingers were tingling with the need to form a fist. "What's up, sweetie?" Mum was standing at the foot of the ladder with the thermos and 3 mugs. "Nothing." I took a deep breath and opened my fingers. Better not hit him in front of Mum. "Lend a hand?" She held up the mugs. "Don't like my chances of making it to the top without an accident." I was on my feet and beside the ladder before she had finished her sentence. I set the mugs down on the coffee table beside the lounge and poured the tea. She'd already put milk and sugar in mine, and the same in my brother's aeroplane mug. She drank hers black. I didn't know how she could stand it, but she winked and whispered, "I'm sweet enough." By the time I turned to look at the Wallaces, their car was already on its way up the road. I was disappointed. How could I show my brother that he was the idiot if Mum couldn't see their faces? I watched him smugly banging his heels against the eaves. He was staring at the long black car. The silver Angelique was catching the sunlight and glowing as though someone had switched it on. It was so bright it even caught Mum's eye. "We should invite her for tea." My mug nearly fell from my hand. "When?" "Now?" My brother's voice brimmed with excitement, and he was up and hovering around us like a desperate puppy. "I'll go." "No, dear." Mum was laughing. We hadn't seen my brother this excited since Mum got home with the telescope. "I think we should give her some time to settle in." His shoulders dropped and he crossed his arms. "There's no harm in asking her. I can go over and ask." His voice was still hopeful. "She can always say no." "There's plenty of time, and when she's had a day or two to settle in, we'll ask. She may very well take a look at us and say no." "Can I go over this afternoon and see?" He wasn't giving up easily. "No." "Why not?" Mum sighed. "Because we need to respect her privacy." In a day or two, we'll see. This is stupid, he whinged, stamping his foot on the iron. The boom of it scattered a nest of startled pigeons on a branch above his head. Something small and white splashed into his tea, but he was too mad to notice. You never let me do anything. Patience is a virtue, said Mum, sipping her tea. Surely you don't want the amazing Angelique to think you have no manners? He looked at her, still frowning. I'd like her to know that there's a gentleman living next door. She ran her hand over his head and let it rest on his shoulder. You're the man of the household. You must always set a good example. He grinned and straightened his shoulders so that he looked taller, broader. Okay. His voice was deep in the attempt to sound manly, but it sounded more like a froggy croak. We'll give her time to settle in. Mum winked at me. I wanted to wink back, but I hadn't learned how to, so I shut both my eyes for a second. When I opened them, I saw my brother taking a manly swig of his tea. My heart pounded as I watched his look of satisfaction change to confusion, then nausea. His cheeks ballooned with the liquid and he ran to the edge of the roof in order to spit out what I knew was pigeon poo soup. At that exact moment, the door next door opened and out stepped Angelique, scarlet and pink in the morning sun. I watched my brother freeze, his mouth still full of liquid, his face red and desperate. Angelique stood on her front step and slowly raised her glamorous glassed eyes to my brother, the sunlight dancing on her startling lipstick. We all saw her smile. For the first time in my life, I felt sorry for my brother. His face was by now the same colour as Angelique's shimmery dress. I held my breath, wondering how far the tea would make it across the garden and whether the tea could go further than cherry seeds. I was in the process of making a mental note to experiment with a variety of mediums when I saw my brother shift on his feet, close his eyebrows and swallow. I know my mouth was open because Mum put her hand on my shoulder. Are you all right, sweetie? I couldn't answer. I could only blink at my brother's bravery. Apart from a momentary flash of dread, his face showed nothing of what he had done. Instead, he smiled and waved at Angelique. He was blushing, or was it the reflection of her dress in the morning light? Sweetie, Mum squeezed my shoulder. I'd forgotten that Mum was even there. Angelique's up. She's out the front. I was dragging Mum to the edge of the roof to stand beside my brother. I watched the bright red lips smile warmly as we assembled and felt Mum's hand leave my shoulder, as if to wave to the woman on the ground. I noticed a raised eyebrow peek above a sunglass, then a slight tilt of the head as she opened her mouth. What followed was like music, soothing and strange. Bonjour, madame, mademoiselle et monsieur. Il fait bon ce matin, n'est-ce pas? I think all three of us swallowed. I had no idea what she'd just said, but I didn't care. We wanted her to say it again. I looked to Mum for a translation and saw her cheeks had gone red. Before I had a chance to ask what Angelique had just said, my mother was already replying. Bonjour, mademoiselle. Mes enfants ne parlent pas le français, et moi, je parle seulement un peu. Pardonnez-moi. Bienvenue, mademoiselle. My brother and I could hardly believe our ears. Was this our mother? Our surprise was not lost on Angelique. She laughed. Ah, your mother has shocked you, no? Her voice danced over each syllable with feet of silk. Je m'appelle Angelique. I am Angelique. I am very pleased to meet you. My mother introduced us, and when she'd finished, my brother continued, I'm the man of the house. Oh? Angelique's eyebrow arched and her dark glasses focused on my mother. Mum nodded. Then I will know where I must come for help. I watched both women share a smile. My brother puffed out his chest. And this is Pocky. I cringed. Pocky? The name didn't sound anywhere near as bad when she said it. Yeah, on account of her being so scarred and all, he said, his voice dropping to a croak. The pox. She had it real bad. It even scared her brain. Mum frowned, and so did Angelique. Le pox? Qu'est-ce que c'est? Chicken pox, said Mum. Sibling rivalry. She wrapped her arms around me and kissed my head. I call her sweetie. Ah, she nodded. Then I shall do so too, mon petit chou. I turned to Mum. She just called you her little cabbage. It means sweetie. I turned back to Angelique, grinning my approval. And you must call me Kike, for we are friends, no? She turned her attention back to Mum. And you, madame? I will find a name for you. Mais till then, may I call you La Lion? Lioness? Mum frowned. Oui, for you protect your little cubs. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. One thing I probably should have told you is that most of the time this family lives up on their roof. They've got a flat roof made of corrugated iron, and that's where they're living. And that's where they are when they meet Kike for the first time. So I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed reading it to you. If you want to get a copy of Pink, the best way to do that is contact the publishers, because when you contact the publishers, the writers, like myself, get paid a higher fee. So if you order through them, that's great. Enjoy, and I hope you really enjoy this read. I really enjoyed writing it. Thank you.